Welcome to the Law Firm Insider with your host, Seth Price, managing partner of Price Benowitz and founder of Blue Shark Digital, taking you inside the world of SEO, marketing, management, and more.
Welcome, everybody, to the Law Firm Insider. Thrilled to have Ken Hardison here, founder of PILMMA, also founder of the National Motorcycle Marketing Academy. I'm sure I'm getting the name wrong, as well as Ghost Calls. Ken, an honor to have you here.
Oh, pleasure to be here, man, as always.
Well, look, reason I wanted you on today is you've looked inside more law firms than just about anybody else, right? You've helped firms with their marketing and management. You now have an entire outfit working on generating motorcycle cases, and you've figured out, hey, as we all have, that the hole in the bucket is intake, and you're like helping people figure out how to correct that. When looking at law firms, if you were, looking at personal injury law firms specifically, what are the top three areas you think that if the average law firm owner woke up, they would see a way to move the needle and create more revenue?
Well, we were at the National, we were just talking about that. I was at the National Academy of Trial Lawyers, and I did this presentation on the 7 levers of cash flow. And really what it is, it's the 7 levers, 7 things you can do to increase your net profit is really what it's all about. And I say probably the low-hanging fruit, every law firm I've ever been to in my life or talked to can always improve their percentage of conversion on their intakes. And even if they think that they sign up every case they do, they don't. They might personally, but their other lawyers don't, and their other staff members don't. And all I can tell you is that you really need to be looking at percentages of cases you want. Say like you get 100 intakes in, but there's only 40 of those cases you really want. Well, what percentage of those 40 did you actually sign up? And if you will keep track of that, most law firms are around 70 to 80%, and they think they're at 100, but they really need to get it around 90 to 95%. And if you just do that one thing, you're going to see a 10 to 20% jump in your income without spending any more money.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. What's the best methodology in your estimation to determine what a case you want? This, we know it academically, right? Oh, there's a broken bone. But the people who are the front lines are also very often the people who are determining if it's a case they want, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, we don't want that case. No big deal. We didn't get it. What are your thoughts on the checks and balances so you get a real data on that?
So it depends on whether you want to be a stickler or, whether you want to, what's your criteria going to be? Is it going to be a lax criteria? Is it going to be a tight criteria? Some law firms, they just don't want to deal with soft tissue. They don't want to deal with this. You set up your parameters for your intake people, but you also give it to somebody that owns it. What I'm saying is when everybody owns it, nobody owns it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
When everybody's accountable, nobody's accountable. So you got to have one person. And they don't actually even have to be in that unit. But most of the time, if you're big enough, you've got a head of the intake department or a manager. If you don't, it could be your marketing manager. It could be whoever you want, your office manager. It could be whoever you want. And I would get the personality that fits your criteria. If your criteria is lax, then you want somebody that's kind of lax. If you want somebody if your criteria is really, I just really want, $50,000 cases or above or 100,000, then you need to put somebody in there, and they need to go through these intakes every day. And I know that's a lot, but think about it. If it takes an hour a day and it can make you extra 20% net profit, if that's a lot of money, and it could even make you 30%. I'm just being very conservative, but
no, I get it. So let me look, this is an issue I personally deal with the Price Benowitz. I know my clients do. Okay, great. You get a decent team to answer the phones. There's even a process to record calls and listen to them, or listen to Falkowitz in their heads, right? So the piece that I've always struggled with is the management of that team. I historically have elevated people from within, and I think I have about a 2 out of 7, historic results of it working well. What are your thoughts on, because it's easy to say you need to manage these people, but what's the right person? Where do you go to find that person?
See, a lot of times, and I made this mistake too early on, you think your best person in your department will be the best person to manage, and that's not always. It's probably 80% of the time it's not true. They can be the great, implementer or whatever, but they don't know how to manage people, because managing people, it takes a different skill set than doing the intakes themselves. In fact, I would say it's almost opposite, because somebody manager's got to be a little, you can't be real empathetic, because they got to hold people's feet to the fire, right? But your intake person, you want them empathetic, sympathetic, all that, woozy, how you feeling. But no, that person is managing that. They need to be, they gotta draw hard lines in the sand, and they've got to hold people accountable and call them out. So how do you find those people? I think you go without and hire new, and give them the test. I like the Jay Henderson test, the real, there's other ones. There's the DISC test, there's the Wonderlic test, there's all kinds of tests you could take. I personally like the real talent hiring test. It's a little bit more expensive, but if he's got tests in there for managers. So if you tell him, I want them to take the management test, he's going to tell you whether or not they got what it takes to manage other people. And they might be great people, but they might not be a manager material.
I just thought of this. Jay will like this as another revenue model, but I should probably have used that over the years before promoting people. Very often it's out of desperation, to be frank. I hate, truth is, one manager leaves, you're like, what do I do? Oh shit, I don't want to deal with this. So I'm putting somebody else in charge.
Yeah.
Look, we could talk all day on this, and I'm love the ghost calls. I'm trying to come up with some of my own, things we'll talk about further later on, just as far as ways to get the phones answered. But outside of intake is always golden, right? There's more opportunity. You spent the money. What are the other areas that you see the low-hanging fruit for most PI law firms?
So two things. They're kind of the same. Well,
We'll take it one at a time.
Okay, we'll do one at a time. So if you're advancing cost out of your money, out of your own accounts, out of your pocket, even if you're charging interest, which most lawyers don't, you're having to use after-tax dollars. So if you got a $200,000, $500,000 in cost advance, you probably had to make anywhere from 2/3 to double that in real money. Okay, that money can be used for marketing, or it can be used to put in your pocket. So there's a lot of companies out there, Esquire Bank, Advocate Capital, Council Finance. There's loads of companies out there that will advance these costs and charge the client, and you just put the cost onto the client. You free up your money. Now it's a slow process, because you've got to start putting it in a contract, and they've all been approved by the state bars and all this stuff. I started doing it in '98. My biggest fear was clients won't like that. I never had a client where, obviously, they had to pay you money up front. They paid it out of settlement. They don't care. They really don't care. People worry about that, but they do not care. I promise you. And the only time you have to pay it is if you lose the case or they fire you and don't pay it. But what's the difference? You're going to have to pay it anyway, right? So, the deal is that could free up a lot more money to actually get more cases in with marketing or whatever.
Well, I fought that hard. To me, I'm starting to think that, there also could be a two-tier. You don't need to, if you don't feel right putting it on some nonsense soft tissue case, it's going to really not have much compared to, the bigger med mal cases. I really like what Steno's doing, disrupting the market. They have amazing, I don't know if you've heard about it, but basically a court reporting industry firm that, if this takes over the market, could be the new normal, I hope, which is pay on the back end and only if you win. Now, it's a bigger chunk per page, but which again is one of those areas that, is putting this whole system, because the idea of using the post-tax dollars for this, you're right, it's terrible. And yet, myself and many lawyers have it stuck in our heads that we don't want to do it for a number of reasons. As I see things like this chipping away at it, it says, okay, well, maybe I could use it for this. And then, you don't have to have a bright line rule within your firm. If you want to just do this for more significant cases and get a med mal case in, this isn't like there are 7 people chomping at the bit. It's generally, you've taken to a doctor, it's weeks later. It's a much different risk calculus. And it may be that, in some markets, people don't care. In some markets they do, but either way, just making sure it's part of your thought process.
And a third way is raise your prices. And let's talk about non-contingency firms, and let's talk about contingency firms. So non-contingency firms like domestic, criminal, immigration, whatever, there's a thing called price elasticity, and it would take me an hour to go through the whole deal. But the bottom line is,
I was an economics major, so I somehow plowed through that not well in the late 80s.
The bottom line, the simplistic deal is you can sit here and you can't see my, but you can keep raising your prices and look at what your conversion on your intakes is and see what your profit is, and you'll hit a sweet spot. So you edge it up till it gets to the point to where it's diminishing return. Not as many people, you're too high, but the market will tell you how much you can charge. Okay, if you're charging $250 an hour and you're a domestic lawyer, you probably could charge $350 and get by with it. And some people say, well, I might not have as many cases. Well, that means you don't have to have as many staff, if you're solo. But if you're, but I'm saying there's a way. You just got to keep checking it every month and look and really watch your conversion on your intakes for these domestic or criminal cases. And the market will tell you where you got to stop or either go down a little bit. On contingency law firms, all the states except Florida has got regulated. They can only charge 25%, except in certain situations. But what we found at PILMMA in our masterminds, and I advocated this, everybody's been charging a third since I got out of law school in 1982, right? And everything else has gone up, right? Everything has gone up. But lawyers' contingency fees for rec cases have not gone up. Now, there's some law firms that have gone up, and what I've seen is that we polled all our members. We had some charging 38% and 45% if we went to trial, and they won't get any kickback. And so, if they do get kickback, you can just say, okay, well, we'll do it for a third. But if you think about it, if you went to 38% versus 33%, that's 5% more, right? If you settle $30 million worth of cases and you get $10 million worth of fees, that's a third. If you settle 30 million cases and charge 38%, you got another 5% of 30 million, which is whatever it is. What is it? I mean, is it 1.5 million or is it 150,000? I don't know.
If it's 10% of 30 million, you'd be at 3 million, so 1.5 million.
So that's another 1.5 million onto your revenues. Now that you could say, well, I don't do that kind of stuff. We reduce it to where it's just
let's say you get it half the time. Let's say half the time you're in a jump ball situation. You're obviously not going to push it, and that's the idea. And I bring that, like what you're saying is think outside the box, push the envelope. The worst somebody could do is not do it, and it's true with everything, right? On the flat fee cases or the hourly stuff, I'm a big proponent. I tell my lawyers, look, I'd like you to be if you remember like a Bubba Head in the DUI space, he was like $50,000 a DUI. Did he ever really get it? I'm sure he got it a few times, but people thought of him as that. So if you charge you $5,000 or $7,500 for a DUI, you're like, wow, I got the $50,000 guy for that. I'm a big proponent of making it so that you're the $800 an hour family person. Let everybody in town talk about you. You're the most expensive. There's going to be a military discount. There's going to be a referral discount. There's going to be everything else that may put you at 400 like everybody else. But for the guy who walks in the door flexing, who says, I want the best in the city, it reminds me of GW, where I went to law school. The undergrad at one point needed some recognition. And it was really a commuter school. He was converting it into a regular one. They're buying all sorts of real estate. And they did something genius. I think it was the med school. I think the undergrad at one point may have been the most expensive undergrad in the country. And I always envisioned some guy in Abu Dhabi who's like, I can't get my kid into Harvard but I can send him to the most expensive school in the country. That must be decent. And there's some, there's a perceived value. And as long as you're not losing people because they're never going to pay $800 an hour, the idea for many people that they're getting a deal and that you're perceived as the $800 an hour person goes a long way.
And one other thing, even in Florida, and I've seen some firms do this, I'm not advocating it because I have a little conflict with it, but I would tell you ways you can increase your profits, right? They're charging $250 upfront fee for opening a file. They're charging, and then I know one firm that charges $250 up front, $250 in the back, closing the file as administrative fee. I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying that's the way to do it. And you figure that's $500 if you're handling 500 cases, that's an extra $250,000 a year.
And look, when you're in a $10 million case, I guess it's not really a significant thing but what I have seen, my dad, he's 86, still practicing trust and estates law in New York. And over the years watching him, so he had a small business, 4 partners for 30 years. He's now essentially doing his own thing in senior counsel at our firm. But he always said, people never complained about his hourly rate. It was always a fair, but aggressive hourly rate. But if you charge 25 cents a piece for copies, people bitched and moaned. So I'm very torn. I don't love, my own personal feeling is make your money, don't nickel and dime. If you want to charge 37% and you're that guy, fine. But the idea that you're like adding additional stuff, to me, it's the little stuff that when you go down a real estate closing list, a big number gets hidden. But like those little tiny ones for like the appraisers charging me this and that, like it adds up. And so the less you can have of junk fees, I like, but it makes money. It's one way to make a buck in life.
I said I had a conflict with it. I mean, I really do have a problem with it because maybe that's the problem. I feel like you're nickel and diming them.
And that's not the point. The point is, charge what you're charging. My feeling, whether it be Blue Shark or others, charge what you're charging. Don't come back for more. And that's what creates the repeat players. But again, people who are like people who have pushed the envelope of, big law. I remember back in the day, they were charging, $1 for faxes and, numbers for like phone calls from the car phone when that was a thing. You can build a lot of profit in. It just doesn't. The question is, how do you want to be perceived? And is this we're charging you this and the rest of it is there, or somebody who has to keep watching out? Any final thoughts? I mean, it's a nice tight conversation, but tell me about upcoming events that you're having.
Okay, our next event actually is probably be after you air this, was February the 23rd, 24th. We're doing NAML, the National Academy of Motorcycle Injury Lawyers in Vegas, a 2-day event, and then we'll have our mastermind meeting after that. Then the next event is our PILMMA Super Summit, which is going to be in New Orleans at the Ritz-Carlton. And we've lined up you and 26 other experts to really give us a lot of value and information about how to get more cases, how to be more profitable. I'm going to be speaking a couple of times. And then when we get through with that, the next day, I'm doing something because I see this as becoming a big deal, is the buying and selling of law firms. And so we brought in 4 experts plus myself. We'll spend a whole day talking about nothing except buying and selling law firms. And I just think you're going to see more and more of it in the next 5 years.
I like it. I was just at a mastermind and it was the topic du jour, and people are doing it and trying it. And, I went through that just before COVID. I spent about a year looking at firms to buy and found it very challenging that the markets were not mature. But I use dating as the analogy for almost everything I do in life, whether it be intake, whether it be HR, whether it be hiring. And I kind of feel like, if part of it, I can't wait to hear what this day is about. But I think the challenge that I had was finding people where they were motivated to sell. Like if you knock on somebody's door and they're happily living with their family and say, I want to buy your house, the number is very different than when somebody's just retired and they're getting packed up the van to move to Arizona. And that figuring out that game can, get you the value, because when you knocking on the doors cold that I was trying with a consultant brought me a lot of people that were willing to sell, but for crazy numbers. And as I see a lot of the consultants you're going to have there, they've set up a pretty neat system to value firms and make, find a way to do that. I know one of my friends and mentors, Andrew Finkelstein's bought quite a few firms in New York State and done a really nice job making sure that he incentivizes the seller while allowing the legacy firm to not be strapped with debt.
Yeah. And this is something we just decided this morning that I hadn't even talked to you about it, and I want to ask you to speak. We're going to do our internet domination bootcamp for lawyers in September, but it's going to be virtual. We did it last time because of COVID virtual, and we actually found out we got more people to come. And I just think it's better. We're going to have it over 3 days from like 1 to 5. I don't even have a date. I just know it's going to be in September. we gotta pick a date, make sure we're not conflicted with anybody else. And then this new thing, and I don't know if you know about it, Seth, is NTL is coming up with a new event in November, and we're going to be part of that, the business along.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and so I think we're going to be sponsoring one of the days there, and so we'll be speaking there and doing a lot of stuff. So we got a full year, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
All good stuff. All good stuff. You know, yeah. I mean, it's. So I want you to speak at it. I'll send out the formal invitation, but
I appreciate it. Well, look,
yeah,
Ken, this is always enlightening. And as you know, I've been sort of noodling around a lot of this, offshore pieces, and we'll continue that conversation. But the idea of figuring out what is the gap between in-house intake and answering service, I think, is one of the things I'm focused on this year, and I feel got to.
I think it's something to be focused on, because people cannot find good people now. And here's what I'm seeing: our members, we've got some members that just said the hell with it. And the people that they can hire in other countries, they're hiring them. They can do every job can't be done overseas, right? But they're finding that it works. I mean, there might be a little glitch here and there. I mean, we got a lawyer in Orlando that's in the last 6 months hired 10 people.
Yeah, no, Price Benowitz has 15 people, and it is eye-opening. It is not a straight line. I think that as this takes off, there's going to be legal issues and tax issues with those countries, but all of which are solvable. It's just money and where is that margin. But right now, the risk factor for us and for so many of your clients, it seems to be that stability of employable talent, and whether it be price point, which is at least in the DC market becoming, really a risk factor, as well as even with that, the turnover that's involved. You work on culture, you work on making sure pricing is there, making sure that what needs to be done in the US is done in the US, and that leveraging a world of talent has really been eye-opening.
And another thing, man, you were I sit in on this at the NTL, and you were moderating it, but this thing about, Arizona and this hedge fund money coming in and how this is going to affect other lawyers. I think that's a topic that needs to be discussed more in detail. Is people say, well, no, it's never coming to North Carolina or South. Well, if those people go to Arizona and open up these law firms, they're going to be using the internet to get cases from all over the country.
Couldn't agree more.
And I don't know what that's going to do with other states, if their bars are going to start making rules or whatever, but it's coming. And they're going to need lawyers to handle these cases, and they're going to pay you attorney fees, you're right, referral fees. So I just think there's another opportunity out there that a lot of lawyers ain't thought about.
Right. I think that it's, what we don't know is this something that your herd is going to be benefited from, or is this going to be that we're like black car drivers, chauffeurs that had their private Rolodex, and then Uber came, and all of a sudden there's no business, and they're working for the man at 40 cents on the dollar instead of 66. So you're just not quite sure. Is this going to be the biggest firms will survive, or is there the analogy used by, I think it was Andrew Finkelstein, talking about how, there's a Dominoes and yet you still have the mom and pop pizza places. To be determined.
I did a lot of research on this several years ago, back when Finkelstein was making all those lawsuits, because I really want to get into it. They've already done this in Australia and Britain, whatever. And what I read was that only like 18% of the business was getting taken in. These small to medium firms were still doing business. It didn't get it. What it did, it killed the inefficient ones. You know what I'm saying?
And I think we're already seeing that. I mean, that's part of why I think, to bring this full circle and conclude, why you're doing your day on buying and selling, because there are so many firms. Look, so many people got into PI. Thanks to you, I took a criminal practice and added PI to it. So many people have built up their firms, leveraging you. Then you have the Morgans coming in with money. So all these people are out there looking for cases, and these smaller guys who, less and less are going directly through referrals, given how much is out there with efficient marketing. And even the referral people, if they don't answer their phones, that's not going to, so you're seeing a place where, we've been talking about internally, glad to see this day on it, because you got to think that there's going to be opportunity coming up.
I do. That's one reason I want to do this event. The baby boomers are hitting. I got a lot of, I'm already right now, I'm brokering 2 deals right now for people buying law firms or selling firms. And I'm just seeing it more and more. I mean,
let me conclude with this question then. Within the PI space, I assume that's where you spend much of your time, or the contingency space.
Yeah.
Is there a formula that people should be looking at that you see work well? People talk about a multi-year payout. Is there sort of a truism that works, or is it every deal is negotiated differently?
It can be negotiated differently, but I think where you need to start at, and then you can go up or down depending on, because you got to look at what it, the main thing of what I'm seeing, people that are buying want to make sure you got a healthy caseload, so that they can pay you back with the profits, right?
Right.
Either pay you or either pay the loan that they're getting, right? Because there's so much money out there. Money a lot cheaper than it was 5 years ago. Hell, they weren't even have money 10 years ago, 12 years ago. But really, you can take like your last 3 years and look at whether it's going trending up or trending down. And somewhere, if you can get like 1 year's gross revenues, or you can turn around and say, what is my EBITDA, which is earnings before income taxes, depreciation, whatever. If you can take that number and then figure out a multiple, and most time it's going to be between 3 and 4, negotiable, but and that's going to probably end out, honestly, being about the same thing as 1 year's of growth.
Exactly. I mean, and look, that's what you're saying is somewhere between 25 and a third of gross, which of the firms ready to sell very often may not quite even be there, which is why you see people selling, I assume, 2 to 3 when it's a distress situation.
Yeah. But I think, and I've seen some people just still, depends on the situation, but the problem is, you can get more if you've got a law firm, if you got a machine that knows how to get, got a constant stream of cases coming in, they're predictable, and you've got processes, you got procedures, you got systems, you've got key people that are really good and going to stay, you can get more for that firm.
Right, because it's a machine.
I mean,
you see this in the business world. If you have most businesses are sold on a multiple of EBITDA, and 3 to 4 is low, but part of that is because there's not normally an exit out of it. But if you're not a machine, and you're just a broken, I guess that's also part of the issue. If somebody has something that is broken down, then it is, the integration costs are not nothing. Just getting stuff onto your software is significant. And I've seen people just throw their hands up and say, it's not, particularly outside the contingency space, it's just not worth it. Like, I'll take over a firm, but there's no money because the money is spent, which would be paid in sweat equity to actually roll it in.
Yeah. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, that's why you don't see a lot of these solo guys sell their firms. They just close it down. I mean,
and that was the point of the NTL conference, which was, why if you have a pizza place, can you sell it to the guy down the block, but the law firm you can't? So we will conclude with, you really got to be there on that final day of PILMMA to both figure out how to build your firm through acquisition, but also to figure out your exit strategy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. This was awesome as always. We will see you soon, and be well.
Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Law Firm Insider with Seth Price. Be sure to check back next week for fresh insights to help you scale your business. Episodes are available to stream directly on Blue Shark Digital's website.